Hey, hello there, hope you all have been doing well. It's not every day that I lie on the floor, but seeing how it's been getting a lot hotter recently, sometimes it's good for a change of pace. As you can see, I'm a little more naked than usual as well, but let's not let that get me banned or anything, yeah? So anyway, today I'll be covering the last of the anime Doujin events I went to during Golden Week, which was the period from the last week of April, around the 29th, to the start of May. As you can see from the calendar on your PC, or well, your mobile phone if you're one of the small screen viewers, we are very far past the week itself at this point, but well, let's just say things kinda got a little busy with other stuff as well, but here we are, just in time for it to not be too late before the next event happens. So all of the other events that happened during this period I've already covered. You can watch them after you finish this video. Links are in the description down below if you're interested. But today we'll be talking about Comic1, which, yes, that is a number at the end of its name. Which, as you can imagine, makes it a little bit confusing due to the fact that this time is the 22nd Comic1. But unlike most other events where typically you would have the 1 or the number at the end of the event, like events number of times held in the past being over here like this, you can't really do that with Comic1 due to the fact that, well, whatever you do, it's gonna be multiplied by 10, which is gonna make you look very stupid since it would make you seem like you can't math, and that is probably why they decided to put 22nd at the front instead. So this video is probably gonna be a lot shorter than the last two for the simple reason that compared to the last two events, Comic1 isn't anything too unique in that sense. Like, the main thing that I feel makes this event very unique is just the fact that this is the closest event you can go to get a Comiket experience without actually going for Comiket. In the sense that it's a much smaller scale version of Comiket where you get the same about variety of circles from all different walks of hobbies. I'm not sure that's how that line is supposed to go, but it doesn't matter, we're going on anyway. So it really is like a mini Comiket that can go if you want to experience what Comiket is like in terms of the variety of things you can see there, while also avoiding the huge queues and lines and crowds that you would normally see at Comiket. Because as you can see from the small amount of video I have here, there's a lot more open space, a lot more people passing by with you still being able to lick the floor if you really wanted to. And unfortunately, that means that the event is a little less convenient than Comiket, since unlike in Comiket, in this event you can't really lift your feet off the ground and let the crowd just lift you along like some kind of moving conveyor belt due to the fact that there just simply isn't enough people there to do it. That said, it's not like all the big names don't actually go there. Some of the popular Doujin artists still turn up there every once in a while as well. As you can see here, it's a lot less than the last two events simply because it actually took place on the same day as Reitaisai this year. I need to check if it happens every single year as well in that way, but suffice to say, because of that, I ended up buying a lot more stuff at Reitaisai because with that event I kind of knew all of what I wanted to get. Whereas with Comic1, like most other Doujin events, if you don't really know any of the artists there at all, it's kind of hard to know what you would want, and it's a lot more difficult to prepare money as a result. But if you do know, you can, ensure that you most likely have enough money without having to draw money. Especially if you're coming from overseas, because the thing with ATMs in Japan is that you can draw money from overseas bank accounts using them, but the exchange rates in Japan are typically a lot worse than what you can get in your home country. So typically it's better to prepare enough money so that you don't have to use these horrible rates plus the additional surcharge on drawing money that happens, especially for the ATM machines in the big site as well, which many of them do have a surcharge for. That said, this event really makes a good midway point between large events like Comiket with very limited space due to the sheer volume of people who want to set up a booth there, with its high cost as well, as compared to the smaller events like Superhero in Time where, while it's a lot cheaper and the venues are a lot smaller, you tend to have more space to put up more elaborate booths if you really wanted to show off more stuff, as well as it typically being more specialized in terms of it being purely for a few limited number of series instead. This is somewhere in between, and so you do see some booths which actually set up quite interesting standees and stuff like this, which you can't really see during Comiket. And you also still get a huge variety of different stuff, which makes it a lot easier, especially if you're a fan of just a lot of different anime in general, to maybe find something that might interest you. So especially for those series which are already past the current season of airing, it might be quite interesting to see some of the stuff that you can find for those series as well. That said, as you can imagine, because of the type of event it is, you kind of do get quite a lot of not safe for work content as well. I would say this actually has more not safe for work content as a ratio to everything else, as compared to something like Reitaisai, for example. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff I can't show here, but aside from that, I'll see what else we can look at together today. So I know most people are probably here for the more weeb stuff instead, like,
ooh, what kind of weeb stuff did you find at the event today?
Well, it's not today, it was a few days ago. Well, no, it was probably more than a month ago at this point, but let's start with all the more general stuff as well, because there is quite a big variety of stuff that would be much more unique and that typically doesn't get as much coverage outside of Japan. And like in the last two videos, as I mentioned before, I kind of want to show this stuff off as well to show like the vast majority of unique things that you can find at this event for all the different hobbyist groups that create doujin content as well. So the first book I have is Yamanote-sen Redive. For those of you who play the English version of the Redive game, my condolences. Hopefully this doesn't give you any PTSD. That said, this book was quite an interesting one. They are one of what you call those train otakus who are very into trains. Not so much like Thomas the Tank Engine, but just more in terms of just like train. Instead, you know, one could even say that they have been well trained to spot all of the best things that you can find at each of the stations. That wasn't a good joke at all. Yeah, the funny thing about this book is that while typically most doujins are aimed at locals instead, this one actually kind of works very well if you're a tourist trying to find out more about Tokyo in particular, due to the fact that the Yamanote-sen is, or about the Yamanote line, is one of the train lines that is most frequented by tourists, since it tends to give you a good circle around most of the important or key tourist locations within Japan, from Shinjuku to Tokyo Station to Akihabara. Most of them pass by the Yamanote line, and that makes it a lot easier for tourists to use, and so many of them do use it. And this book kind of gives you a good breakdown of every single station, kind of some of the stuff you can see each station as well. You have Akihabara. You also have something like this where they actually just have an entire section dedicated to Weathering for You, that one anime movie by Shinkai Makoto in the past, where they essentially go around to every single landmark area that was in the anime within Tokyo, and they just show you where all of this are and like what they look like and what you can find there as well. History about some of the less well-known stations like Shin-Okubo, because obviously not every station on the line is gonna be one that's meant for tourists, but this one kind of has quite a bit of history behind it as well, due to a train derailment that happened in the past and a permanent memorial that was set up there for it. This might be a very useful book, and they have a lot more different books obviously for not only the different lines but also on the different types of trains, since by virtue of them being train otakus, they do a lot of analysis on the different trains that also run within Japan. Next up, this is something I saw at a previous event as well, Comiket, the one I mentioned before, but at the time I didn't manage to buy it, since as you could have seen in the last video, it's probably a few videos back, but in the last video in this series, I actually bought already quite a bit of stuff there, so I didn't want to spend too much money, even though this event was only 2 days later, so that entire argument point is rendered moot. But hey, at least it gives me a chance to show how much variety Comic1 has as well. So this book is called Distant Worlds 7, and what it has is a lot of pictures of ruined areas, basically all of the old castles, ruins that have been left abandoned over the years, and how they all look like now. It's a very good look at areas, basically the entire series of areas that look a lot like an isekai now, or as the title, well, also implies. Like if anyone is watching from England or Scotland, this might make a lot more sense to them perhaps, but as someone who has never actually gotten a chance to go there before, it's kind of interesting to see that there are so many places like this. And so you don't really have to go down specifically to a doujin event to get these books. If you wanted to, you could go down to many of the bookstores within Japan as well. Although if you want to actually talk to the person who took all the pictures as well, he usually is the one selling them there himself, so you can kind of get a better sense of how he gets all his ideas for all of these books and where he chooses to go and how he finds his places as well. It's a very interesting look at all of these different ruins that you see many ruin hunters going around the world looking for. But yeah, here is the pamphlet, as you can see, of the book that is being sold in the stores as well. Not just the Distant Worlds one, but this. I'll put an English equivalent for that somewhere, but I don't think that's going to help, so just take note of the cover. Maybe I'll put up a blown up picture of the cover somewhere, so you can look for it if you're interested. This book gives a more detailed look at both overseas as well as within Japan, the different types of antiquated locations that you can find. Okay, so this third one here is a little weird, like, okay, this one, it's like If I'm going to show you the cover, it's going to make no sense on its own because it looks like complete gibberish. And if I show you the back, it's actually going to look like a crazy conspiracy theory book. But the thing with the guy who sells all of this is that he's probably one of the most aggressive sellers at most of these events that I've seen. I've seen him at multiple events till now. No, it's not because it's pushy that I bought it, but he tends to sell stuff that has very interesting content and actually makes for quite a good read, especially when you consider the information inside of this. But the only issue is with a cover that looks like a conspiracy theory book, and the fact that the only person selling most of this is the writer himself, which is just a dude wearing a hakama. It does look kind of weird at first glance. The interesting thing about this book is that it's an entire analysis of color tone and how color palettes are used in animes to give you different effects in terms of it portraying both your characters as well as the scenes as well. Like, it's very hard to explain, but stuff like this, where it comes to like lighting within anime as well, where for something like Totoro, which is quite an old anime by Studio Ghibli by now, he kind of explains how the lighting has been changed for even the same scene across different versions of the film that have been aired or released in the different eras since the Showa era till now, and how the lighting has been changed to match the fact that this older, more damp style of lighting, while it would have matched more with the olden eras of the Showa period, it kind of doesn't jive as well with the current modern era. And so to make the lighting itself something that fits better with what people understand as how lighting should work, it has been changed to this more LED-ish bright white light that gives it more focus than it used to in the past. Things like how across the years, as the image of magical girls in general has changed due to a certain, the color tones that have been selected for the different shows have changed quite a bit as well. Like when it comes to something like Sailor Moon, you tend to see a much smaller number of colors being used due to the fact that they wanted to focus on each of them not so much being a very unique standoffish character on their own, but as a team. And so in order to focus on them being a team, you kind of have them having more unified colors, whereas as time progresses, you tend to have more bright, garish, and distinct colors for each of the individual characters due to the fact that they want each one of them to stand out as their own character. And then as you go on to the era of, the colors are more dark and muted for, and stuff like that. It's a very wordy, very technical analysis, like every page is like this, so you can imagine that it would be a very dry read if you're not interested in stuff like this, and so I can understand why it would end up, especially since his design choice seems to be the same as an Angel Fire website from the early 90s. Stuff like this tends to be quite an interesting find at this kind of event, since you do find quite a few circles that do this as well, although they tend to be wedged in the middle of a lot of other circles doing stuff that may or may not be something you can show your mom. Okay, so I think that's most of the stuff I have that is more of the less anime-ish side of Comic1. I mean, this one was already somewhere in the middle, but now we're going into like full read stuff instead. And the first thing we have here is Onimai. I think most of you probably have seen that this anime came out at some point. The Doujin artist for this is still mostly releasing most of the chapters as Doujin works first. This fell out just in time for you to see that pamphlet thing. Line stem. Yeah, it's kind of weird that they would leave the line stem in like black and white, huh? Due to the fact that it kind of makes it a little hard to see what the stems would be online itself, but why? Anyway, Neko Tofu, the Doujin artist for Onimai, still does turn up at most events. He was at Comiket 100 as well, and now he's here with volume 25. Apparently he sold volume 24 at some point at some event, or maybe it didn't even turn up at an event. I don't have it for some reason, and so I have 25. And I have 23 and before, but I don't have 24, so that's gonna give me a reason to go back to his event at some point. Here's another one. I don't know why I have two. If you want it, just let me know. But yeah, this is what I mean by some of the more popular Doujin artists still being at this kind of events as well, even though they're not as big in scale and in terms of like volume of traffic as something like Comiket, they still turn up and they still sell quite a bit of goods as well. I believe they were selling their entire catalogue of every single volume. And the thing is, I don't know if this was caused by me during Comiket 100 or if it was just something that has ended up being like this due to them wanting to make sure that people can get their hands on the books after the fact that it got animated. But now, apparently for this specific event, they actually put out a proper price tag telling people, hey, you can buy every single volume and this is how much it costs. Because I think I went there during Comiket 100 and I was like, give me one of everything, please. And he was just like, yeah, that was a back-breaking experience to bring it all back. But ever since then, he's been selling all of his stuff at like a full box set if you want to purchase it like that, so that's kind of interesting. Also bought the drama CD, since they actually do sell drama CDs as well. I don't know how easily available the drama CDs are as compared to the manga overseas, but there are quite a few of this in the set now, I think, like 3 or 4 perhaps. So if you're interested in drama CDs, he does sell them at events, so that's something you could try to get there as well. This is one that probably only you boomers out there are gonna get. And if you say you know this series and you are not a boomer,
stop lying. We know what you are. Succumb to the truth.
Well, yeah, the series I'm talking about is Kankole. So funnily enough, or well, depending on who you ask, might be sadly, while at bigger events like Comiket, you tend to have many circles still that produce doujins for Kankole. When it comes to smaller events like this one, for example, Comic1, you actually see very few Kankole circles anymore. In fact, even for the last one I went to, which I'll talk about in the future because I want to go to multiple of those types of events before talking about them, I think I only saw one Kankole circle as well. And the thing is, it's always this one circle. Just this one dude is the one loyal Kankole doujin artist who's still making a lot of family-friendly Kankole doujins out there. The circle is called Satoimo Bokujo, and they make mainly 2 different doujin series for Kankole based off these 2 characters, Hibiki and Akatsuki from the Dairoku Kuchikukan, I believe. Both this Game Master series as well as the Akatsuki VTuber? No, YouTuber one actually. She's not a VTuber in that, she's a YouTuber since she exists in that world. And it's just like 24-hour survival challenge in a haunted house. It could go wrong. And stuff like that. You know, your usual very popular YouTube content that makes you question humanity and why people consume that kind of content, but watching someone parody it instead is kind of entertaining, so mostly just gag slice of life-ish things. And this one is about, I believe, her being game master at Saboteur. For those of you who do not know what Saboteur is, yeah, it's basically like playing Monopoly, except that you feel even more like punching your friends by the end of the game because of the fact that it's short, you can play it multiple times, and you have more opportunities to screw each other over than in Monopoly. And if you're really into Kankole, this might be right up your alley, hopefully. Or it might just bring you down PTSD road to all of the horrible shit that Tanaka did back in the days, but hey, it's another joke that only you boomers will get, huh? Ooh. Oh. Okay. Usually I just use this to like measure height, so like I use this, I put it here so that like from that camera you're looking through now, I can see like more or less where I would be, so I can measure to make sure I'm on screen. Like, there's probably a better way to do it, but an old man like me haven't really thought about it all too much, but that's besides the point anyways. There's also dress up darling stuff, although for those of you who think that the original manga art is quite Kumo and therefore most of the doujins would be as well, you're not completely wrong unfortunately, but you do have stuff like this where it's really just a very shoujo manga-ish art, slice of life-ish stuff, which is kind of entertaining if you don't want everything to be all Kuma and horny all the time. Then aside from that one circle, you also had another one doing stuff for it, which it's safe, right? Yeah, it's probably safe. If I do it like this, it's probably safe. They made postcards and an acrylic figure, because quite a few circles there don't make doujins as well. There are some that really just sell goods for the series, like this one which made this acrylic figure and just gave out or sold postcards at 300 yen each, which you might say is quite expensive considering the fact that you probably can't use this to mail anything. And even if you did, there will probably be a lot of judgmental stares both from the person who has to pick this up as well as the people who receive it. But for the most part, you do have a lot of stuff like this as well, which art style wise, it kind of fits pretty well with the series itself in terms of the design. Though in this case, probably closer to the anime than the manga. But yeah, in terms of doujin events, aside from just your books, which I have shown a lot across all these multiple videos as well as accessories, when you go to the more anime-ish ones as well, you tend to see more goods in the sense of acrylic figures, cards, so on. Okay, I actually had to look through the title of this one multiple times due to the fact that it was kind of confusing. Like, I don't know why my brain just refused to pick up what the title of this was, and I actually had like multiple mistaken retakes of this. So it's called Kirabo Time Mazeta Remake. So it's like, I don't even know what that is supposed to mean, but like it's which I don't know how many of you actually know the game Kirafan Fantasy. It's the one that actually had the Bochi the Rock event in it just before it, well, you know. Oh, peace be upon thee. May thee find peace in the hell of all other gacha games. I don't have a lighter to light this up. Nor can this actually be smoked. Like a friend just gave me this electric cigarette which can't be used, so... Anyway. But yeah, the mobile game was mostly just a collabo of all of the different IPs under Manga Time Kirara, which is a publication company in Japan. So this manga is all about Doujin. It's one of a series of doujins where the person just does 4 slice of life comedy bits with all the different characters from the different series. Kind of like most of the stuff in Kirara Time Fantasy, I believe. Because Kirara Time Fantasy, Manga Time Kirara, sorry, which is the publication company's name. Most of the mangas they do are slice of life girls doing cute thing for coma, so this is just in that style as well. And if you want something to memorialize, I guess, or maybe give the game a final farewell, since it's really the last probably thing you can find made by someone. While it may not be official, it is something that someone did put their heart and soul into, at least from the look of the content, into making to celebrate the game itself. So if you're interested, or if you really were someone who liked the concept of the game, this might be something that might be interesting to you. Although I find it unfortunate that in the entire series, including his latest work, he did not actually make a joke about the fact that the game ended right after Bochi the Rock was added to it, in spite of the fact that that probably would have been one of the game's biggest earners. Though then again, with something like this, typically the okay to end the game off comes months before the actual announcement. Like typically maybe like 6 months or more before that. That was probably why, even though it ended up with Bochi the Rock, which would have actually given them a second win, I feel like, the game ended off killing off its service right after that happened. A bit of a dick move, you could say, since they're probably just squeezing more money out of players before the game actually dies. Because the way that the laws with gachas in Japan work is that any unspent microtransaction money you have left can be refunded, but everything that is spent can't be, so it kind of makes it look like a dick move. I don't know if it was intentionally the case, but yeah, this ain't an analysis video of that. Let's not get too deep into that. If you want to hear more about the laws and the like with regards to like Japanese game companies and what they can and can't do with gacha microtransaction money, just do let me know. We can talk about it in the future. But yeah, I believe that's all the stuff that I can actually show for this video. No. Okay, maybe not. The rest is a little too sus. But aside from the ones I've shown till now, yeah, I don't think I can really show the rest. Though that said, compared to all the other doujin and anime events that happened during the Golden Week period, this is probably the smallest and most underwhelming one. Like, by no measure is it a bad event. Like, if you are interested in doujin stuff, there's still a lot to see, and quite a lot of interesting stuff for many series. However, the issue with this one is more the fact that since it's a mini Comiket, you kind of get a very big jumbo of stuff. But the issue is that unlike Comiket, which uses the entirety of East, South, and West halls, this only uses up 2 of the West halls, meaning that you get a much smaller jumbo of stuff, which means that there's a higher likelihood you would not be able to find your stuff that you like, compared to other events like Superhero in Time or Ponycat, where you are told in advance what series are being featured for this event. So like if you're into Blue Archive, for example, you can see that, yes, the Blue Archive only event is going to be a part of this mini event, therefore I know I can find what I want. With Comic1, you kind of don't. It's a very big gamble. So I would say that it's only really worth going if you're planning to come down for every other event or some of the other events that happen during this period as well. As I mentioned, there are 3 others that happen in Tokyo, including Rei Taisai, Comitia, and one more that I can't remember the name of. And if you're interested, there are actually many more happening all across Japan. Like, I definitely remember there being one in Okinawa, for example, another in Sendai, so on and so forth, each being one of those like mini events with multiple series involved in it. So there's a lot to see if you really are interested in doujin events, especially the stuff that typically doesn't make it onto Melon Books or online due to the fact that they are released in the smaller prefectures around Japan. So if you are interested in coming down for all the other events like Rei Taisai or something else, then I would say that this is an interesting event to drop by for, to look at what else they have there. But it's not something you would want to center a trip around, that much is for sure. Well, it might try to emulate a Comiket, it's certainly nowhere close, so plan your trips around other things, but do not use this event as a good gauge of when to do it. That's it, that's all I have to say for this video. I hope you did find it interesting, some of the stuff that I showed on the video. Yeah, I feel like compared to the other events, this one didn't really have as much, and the event itself is a lot simpler as well, so not much as well to talk about. The smaller events are surprisingly more interesting, and those will probably be the ones I'll cover in the next video I do on like events like this. That said, I'm trying to change up the types of videos you guys get so that you don't get the same type of content all the time. You know, I don't want to make every video like this or every video something else. So just to give a bit more of a, I don't know why I'm doing this hand action, it really doesn't mean anything, but just to give you all more of a variety in terms of all of this, I have decided that maybe we can try this out. If you prefer me to cover specific types of content instead, do let me know and I can just change the schedule a bit here and there. But yeah, that's all for me for today. You all have a great, until whenever we meet again, time ahead. So I'll be heading off now. Have a good day, take care, and bye-bye. What am I lying on?